My parents' biological daughter who was abducted for 17 years came home, and my mother held her in her arms and called her sweetheart. She stared at me and pretended to be innocent. Since I came back, shouldn't my sister go back to her own home? She thought I was a thief who was adopted and came to enjoy her affluent life, but she didn't realize that when she said this, the house fell into silence instantly. Zhou Zhenjin is my parents' biological daughter. She was abducted to a remote mountainous area when she was young. She was just found home today. I came back from playing baseball and just walked to the door when I heard suppressed crying coming from the room. I walked in and found that my mother was holding a girl and crying uncontrollably. My father stood beside them. The 1.7-meter tall man had red eyes. My mother's voice was hoarse. Mom finally waited for you. You don't know how much I regretted leaving you alone to a nanny. I instantly understood the identity of this girl. My parents have a biological daughter. At that time they were starting a business and had no time to take care of her. So they hired a nanny to take care of her. The two of them went out early and came back late every day. They rarely even spent time with their daughter, so naturally they didn't know. My aunt was a habitual offender of human trafficking. Later, when the child was 4 years old, the nanny sold her. After many years of searching, she still couldn't find her. Who is this? A weak voice brought me back to my senses. I looked up and found that she was staring at me. I frowned subconsciously. Her sight made me feel a little uncomfortable, but she shrank back with great reaction and leaned back into my mother's arms. My mother patted her back soothingly, smiled and told her not to be afraid. This is your sister. My mother introduced Xinxin to me as your sister Zhenjin, but I remember that I don't have a sister. She hesitated for 2 seconds and looked at me timidly. My mother said something new and I smiled and answered I was adopted. So that's the case. His voice weakened, and he murmured in a spiritless voice, Dad and Mom already have a child. My mother hurriedly hugged him distressfully. Zhenjin, it's not a bad thing to have a sister. There is one more person who loves you at home. Zhou Zhenjin looked gloomy, tears overflowed from her eyes. I thought Mom and Dad would only love me. Why should I share my love with my sister? I am now sure that my discomfort is not an illusion. He is full of hostility towards me, but I can understand that he suffered so much outside before returning home, seeing his original biological parents, and carefully raising another child. He really felt uncomfortable. I was about to explain to him, but Zhenjin's sister said I was Zhou Zhenjin, but she inadvertently amplified her crying. Should I not come back? Now that I have disturbed the lives of your family of 3, my dad got anxious instantly. Zhenjin, what nonsense are you talking about? Your mom and I have been waiting for you for so many years. We are so happy that you are back. Which parent is willing to let their children suffer outside? Zhou Zhenjin looked at my dad helplessly. Really? Of course. He burst into tears and laughed after receiving the affirmative answer, and hugged my dad tightly. I leaned my head on him with attachment. Thank you, Dad, my parent said with relief. The next second he suddenly suggested that since I am back, should my sister go home, and the air was instantly quiet. I only heard the shallow breathing of the crowd, and he looked at my mom expectantly. My mom subconsciously avoided my dad, pretending to drink tea, avoiding his gaze. He finally realized that something was wrong, and his expression showed panic. Dad, did I say something wrong? I saw the dissatisfaction flashing in his eyes, and was slightly stunned. My father coughed and said, We have 2 daughters. If it gets out, it will make Dad proud. My mother also said, Yes, you just came back. If you don't understand something, you can ask Xinxin for help. Zhou Zhenjin didn't seem to expect that this request was rejected so decisively, and subconsciously looked at me. I smiled at him, took my baseball bat and turned to go out. I heard my mother's panicked voice behind me. Xinxin, Xinxin. I went directly to the neighbor's house next door, unlocked it with my fingerprint, and went in directly. This family is inhabited by my nominal aunt and uncle. My actual biological parents. Yes, I was adopted by my current parents. So when Zhou Zhenjin showed hostility to me, although I understood, I didn't think I owed her anything. You should know that it was my aunt who lost her daughter, and was so heartbroken that she knelt in front of my biological mother and begged for adoption. My biological mother didn't agree at first. She had given birth to 3 sons before finally having a daughter like me. How could she give her up to someone else? But my aunt and uncle were willing to buy a house next to my house. They were almost going crazy looking for a daughter. Look at how thin she is. My biological mother softened her heart and agreed to name me Shen Sushin, taking my biological mother's surname, and the Su character in the middle is my biological father's surname. This was the only request my biological mother made for my aunt to adopt me. But I should have been spoiled by everyone. To be honest, if I had been raised by my biological parents, I would be 10,000 times happier than I am now. After all, I have a pair of handsome and loving parents, a big brother who is a domineering boss with ruthless means, a second brother who is a dean of the school, and a third brother who is a wanton and ostentatious director. I have so many strong backers. Thinking back to the dissatisfaction and resentment in Zhou Zhenjin's eyes about me, She would have said that if she had been against me, at best she would have died, and I would have no peace in the days to come. The cousin who was adopted back was a white lotus. Since I could remember, my biological parents and brothers had never ignored me, and even took good care of me when my aunt and uncle had work. They told me more than once that although I was adopted by my aunt, I was always welcome to go back home, and they even specially came to me for this purpose. A room was prepared for me with a study and piano room exclusively for me, so I didn't feel uncomfortable at all when I came back. I lay on the sofa, holding the fruit cut by my aunt, and ate leisurely. There were hurried footsteps outside the door, and my mother and father rushed in. Shin, what's wrong? My mother was relieved when she saw me, and quickly held my face and said, Shin, baby, you've been wronged. Junjun just came back and is a little sensitive. Don't be angry, I asked back, so I deserve to be disliked. My father was shocked and asked, what are you talking about? We watched you grow up from a small girl, you are our own daughter, who dares to dislike you? My mother also said, Shin, you are digging into your mother's heart by saying this. Okay, then I don't want to go back and listen to him say such unlucky words. I'll stay here for a few days. My mother and father said in unison, no, you go back with your mother. I'm worried about you. The two of them took me back to the next door, one on the left and the other on the right, one stretching his shoulders and the other stretching his waist. They were afraid that I would stay at my parents' house, and then I didn't go back either. It seemed that they were not completely occupied by Zhou Zhenjin. I lowered my eyes. The reason why I left so decisively was actually a test for them. I wanted to see if they really had a biological daughter and didn't plan to have me. But now it seems that I was overthinking, and some people were overthinking. My sight inadvertently swept across a window on the second floor, and I noticed a figure standing behind the curtains. I smiled. Zhou Zhenjin, I still won this round. In fact, I didn't have much ill will towards Zhou Zhenjin. After all, she is my parents' biological daughter, and actually my cousin. Although I am spoiled, I have always been very protective of my own people. So when I first met him, I felt a little pity for him. Unfortunately, his action of wanting me to get out as soon as he got home made me lose my head instantly. Since he didn't want to recognize me as his sister, I wouldn't rush to make friends with him. After returning home, Zhou Zhenjin didn't provoke me on the surface, but she made a lot of small moves behind my back. She deliberately showed her intimacy with her mother in front of me, and used gentle. He had a good face and was on good terms with the servants at home. He tried hard to show his harmlessness and gentleness in various ways, trying to highlight his difference from me. But I just watched coldly without any action. Only those who have lacked love since childhood will take love seriously. People like me who have been given abundant love since childhood will not take the weak love to heart at all, and have no chance to actively ask for love, because even if I don't make such an effort, I still know that I am loved. Therefore, I am too lazy to argue with him about his series of small actions. His methods are really too crude. However, although I don't want to argue with him, it's too disgusting to have someone hanging around next to me every day. I called my eldest brother directly, and the main idea was just 4 words: transfer money for consumption. My eldest brother's phone called instantly, and the voice next to him seemed to be still in a meeting, asking if Shin was wronged. I subconsciously acted like a spoiled child. Yes, Zhou Zhenjin is so annoying, picking on me every day. My brother coaxes me, don't be afraid, brother will support you. Wait until brother is done with his business trip. I will move your household registration back home. I comforted him, don't worry brother, how could I suffer a loss? I hung up the phone. 3 million was deposited into the card, with a note for pocket money. I smiled, changed my clothes and planned to go shopping in the mall. When I went downstairs, I heard the lively laughter in the living room. I saw Zhou Zhenjin leaning against her mother obediently. The two of them were smiling. After noticing the movement, he looked up and gave me a provocative look. I thought, do you think this will make me jealous? After passing the sofa, my mother saw that I seemed to be going out, and immediately took out her mobile phone and said, don't wrong yourself when going out shopping. Mom will transfer some money to you. I hummed and successfully saw Zhou Zhenjin's face darken in his cognition. All the money at home is his. He shouldn't give it to an outsider. Sometimes it's quite interesting, just like raising a little doll that can change its face. He suddenly asked, can I go shopping? Mom, I haven't been to a mall in a big city. My mother immediately felt distressed, thinking that it was his first time, so she said of course Mom will take you there. My mother looked at me again, and said intimately, baby, I have to pick up the bag I ordered last time today. Let Mom accompany you shopping. Is that okay? I know he is afraid that I will see him taking Zhou Zhenjin to the mall alone, and feel disappointed. No, I didn't want to agree at first, but when I saw Zhou Zhenjin's resentful expression out of the corner of my eye, I changed my mind and said, okay. When getting in the car, Zhou Zhenjin took the lead and sat next to my mother. After I glanced at her coldly, I drove a Maserati out of the basement directly. When passing in front of them, I saw Zhou Zhenjin's jealous and regretful expression. I slowly curled my lips. You are too narrow-minded. Do you think I am playing such a boring game with you? Naive. What I am best at is breaking the rules when I am not satisfied with the rules. However, Zhou Zhenjin is very tolerant and soon restrained her expression. My sister is really amazing, unlike me. This is the first time I have seen such a beautiful car. I put on my sunglasses and said lazily, since my sister likes it, just take a few more glances. I waved my hand, stepped on the accelerator, and left directly. We've arrived, and we met them at the mall. My mother held my hand and said gently, we'll go get your bag with you first. Okay, Shin? Okay. I readily agreed, and took my mother's hand as usual. Zhou Zhenjin fell behind alone, and seemed to be very angry about what had just happened. At this moment, she did not pretend to smile as usual, but instead had a slump. Suddenly, Zhou Zhenjin's exasperated voice came from behind. Mom, he won't let me in. My mother then realized that he was stopped outside by the security guard at the door. Jun, how did you get to the back? My mother walked over and brought her in. She cried and threw herself into my mother's arms. Why did she stop me? Did my sister not want me to follow you? I watched her performance expressionlessly, and I had to say something awesome. Am I a cheap person? I can be blamed for this kind of thing? My mother immediately proved it for me. What are you talking about? Zhenjin is a security guard. She doesn't know you and she wants you to queue up. Zhou Zhenjin's eyes were full of tears. Then why doesn't my sister have to queue up? I laughed out loud. Tears, I am a VIP here, my sister earns 3 million a year. I clearly saw Zhou Zhenjin was stunned for a moment, and finally showed a jealous look. He said with a crying voice, my family's annual expenses were only 2,000 yuan before. My mother immediately felt distressed, and hugged Zhou Zhenjin tightly in her arms. Zhenjin, you have suffered, it's okay mom, I am very happy to see you again. I leaned aside, commenting in my heart. The little white lotus is good at pretending to be obedient. And stupid, but I interrupted his lyricism and said with a smile, Zhenjin's sister, you don't have to work so hard now the monthly pocket money has increased many times. Zhou Zhenjin. But her face was righteous. Sister, for me money is not the most important, the whole family is together, which makes me happiest. These words simply touched my mother's heart. She looked at Zhou Zhenjin tenderly, with a face full of touching, and, fortunately I tilted my head and sighed, for the white lotus with superb means, for the silly and sweet who only knows how to buy. I showed the bag I ordered, and Zhou Zhenjin was pretending beside me, acting as if she wanted to touch it but didn't dare to. This bag is not cheap, right? I am. Zhou Zhenjin suddenly looked at me, hesitant to speak. Sister, in fact, there are many poor children like me in the world. They don't have enough food to eat, they don't have warm clothes, they are very pitiful. I asked back, so? She didn't seem to expect me to be so straightforward and pleaded softly. So can you not give up this bag and donate the money to those children? I haven't said anything yet, and the shopping guide on the side stood up. She was so gentle and unusually excited. This lady is not a customer of our family, is she? This bag is a limited edition. If you give it up, it will be gone. Besides, to Miss Shen, it's just a bag. Zhou Zhenjin understood the shopping guide's hint and her face turned red. I looked at her embarrassed look coldly, without any sympathy. I once read in a book about the lives of children in remote mountainous areas. Their living environment is very poor, and their educational resources are also scarce. If they are girls, they will die early. Was sent away to get married. At that time, my parents were still looking for their biological daughter. After I learned about this, I began to have trouble sleeping all night. I always had dreams. I dreamed of a girl whose face I couldn't see clearly, who was beaten and scolded and bullied. She was thin and weak with a boy's hairstyle, always with her waist lowered and her head hung. I thought of my sister whom I had never met, and I was afraid that she was also experiencing the same situation. So I took out all my pocket money and gave it to my eldest brother, asking him to help me set up a foundation. I hope to contribute to the growth of girls in poor mountainous areas, and I also hope that if my sister is one of them, even if we can't find her, she can live a better life. It was Zhou Zhenjin's arrival that successfully broke my fantasy. I can accept that he is a mediocre person, and I am willing to protect him all my life, but I cannot accept a mercenary and shrewd person with calculations in his eyes. Sister, please say something. Zhou Zhenjin pretended to be helpless and urged me. I want guidance. Shopping, pack it up. Zhou Zhenjin looked at me in shock, as if I had done something unforgivable. I asked him with a smile, do you think I am too selfish? Zhou Zhenjin lowered his eyes. I dare not. I just think that my sister has the ability to help them. I suddenly clapped my hands. You can have this heart. I admire you so much. Zhou Zhenjin was startled, staring at me. What? I suggested to my mother, since my sister is so thoughtful, why not set up a foundation in her name? My mother was moved but hesitant. But Zhenjin only has 100,000 pocket money a month. My sister just came back. She is simple and frugal. With so much pocket money, she is afraid of being cheated. She happened to have this intention. Why not let her go? I slowly took a sip of tea just to save blessings for her. My mother was convinced by me. Zhou Zhenjin was decided on the purpose of the pocket money by a few words between me and my mother. Obviously a little confused, he opened his mouth, but was afraid of ruining the noble image he pretended to be. So he wanted to pull me down. Shui, then sister, why don't you set up one too? I set up one a long time ago. It's a foundation dedicated to helping girls in poor mountainous areas. Millions of dollars are spent every year. I smiled and said, sister, if you don't understand, feel free to consult me. Zhou Zhenjin's face turned pale. That's right. Standing on the commanding heights, it's nothing to help others. You have to bleed yourself. Since that day, Zhou Zhenjin didn't dare to provoke me casually. I was also happy and comfortable. I didn't pay much attention to him. As long as he didn't make trouble, I could tolerate being in the same space with him for the time being, but it was obvious that I overestimated him. Third brother sent me a message saying that he had sent me a gift. When he went home, he also customized 2 bank cards for me using the local scenery of the filming site. There were 5 million in each card. When I went downstairs to get the gift, I found that Zhou Zhenjin was already in the living room. She was happily holding a pair of scissors. Half of the packaging on the ground had been opened. I instantly had a cold face. It was the first time I got angry. Who allowed you to move? Zhou Zhenjin bit her lip. Sister, you are so angry. Why are you angry? You opened my gift. Zhou Zhenjin's face flashed with stubbornness. I heard from Sister Wang that this was a gift from my cousin to us, not just for you. I glanced at the servant next to me with a smile and made her lower her head. It was indeed sent by my brother, but none of the gifts were for you. It was impossible that Zhou Zhenjin rejected it instantly. With so many gifts, how could mine not be included? I looked at his vigilant look and felt a little speechless. I played my brother's voice. Xinbao, brother is going home soon. The gifts are mailed back to you as usual. Take any that you like. Zhou Zhenjin was instantly defeated and shook her head with red eyes. Why is it that I am obviously his biological cousin? I rolled my eyes rudely. I am still his biological sister. Zhou Zhenjin was furious and wanted to leave. I stood in front of him and asked him to stop and give me the card back. He was still stubborn and asked, "What card?" I looked at him sarcastically. "The total limit of the 2 cards is 10 million. If you don't give it to me, I will call the police." When he heard me talk about the limit of the cards, her eyes were obviously brightened, because I persuaded my mother to take out most of the pocket money she gave to Zhou Zhenjin to set up a foundation. She currently only has 5 or 6,000 yuan on her every month. I heard from the familiar shopping guy that every time she went to Yintai to look at bags, she just carried them. If she didn't buy anything, she was afraid of being looked down upon, so she had to buy a scarf or a pair of slippers before leaving. "Brother, you didn't say the card is yours. There are 2 in total and there is 1 more. What if it's mine?" Zhou Zhenjin said with her neck stiff. I was silent. How could this person be so shameless? Zhou Zhenjin mistakenly thought that I had nothing to say, and became even more complacent. Logically speaking, I am his cousin. You can have all these because of me. I have always used my brother's money only for me. Who do you think you are? Zhou Zhenjin didn't expect me to scold people. He was stunned for a moment. His peripheral vision seemed to catch something, and tears fell instantly. What's wrong? My mom and dad just came back from outside. Seeing this posture, they hurried to greet me. Zhou Zhenjin threw herself into their arms and almost cried herself to death. The unaware ones thought, what did I do to him? I sneered and opened my gift self-righteously. My defense was broken. Zhou Zhenjin sobbed with red eyes. Mom, my cousin didn't bring me a gift but only brought him a gift. Am I so unpopular? I agreed with it and nodded. It was very straightforward. Yes, it was true. Brother Xinxin really didn't bring a gift to Zhenjin. My mother was a little surprised. In her impression, although my third brother was a little unruly, he still behaved well. I shrugged my shoulders. Maybe it's probably because he knows what happened when I went home that day. When these words came out, my parents looked a little uncomfortable. My dad is a straight man, and he said bluntly that this is indeed the way it should be. Dad Zhou Zhenjin looked at my dad in disbelief. My mom also persuaded him, Zhenjin, your cousin has protected Xinxin as his eyeball since she was a child. You had some friction with Xinxin at that time, so it's normal for him not to like you. I was standing aside, almost laughing crazy at my parents' straightforwardness. Zhou Zhenjin's face at this moment was like a tear just dug out. 10 million is nothing. I saw with my own eyes that Zhou Zhenjin's face looked like spilled paint, astonishment and extreme dissatisfaction mixed together, making a fairly pretty face look a little ugly. He stammered twice, but in the end he didn't dare to offend my parents at this time. I watched from the side and thought he was really stupid. No matter what I am, I was brought up by my parents since I was a child, and they invested a lot of time and money. Naturally, our friendship is deep. Although he has a blood bond with me, he cannot convince my parents to let me go just by this. After Zhou Zhenjin successfully shut up, I looked directly at the servant beside me. Aunt Wang has worked at home for so many years, and she is indeed overwhelmed. Go get your salary and go home to enjoy yourself. The servant, who was calm and composed, looked up instantly, with disbelief in his eyes. You can't fire me. Why? I tilted my head, madam or sir. He asked my parents for help. My mother said coldly, since Xinxin has fired you, you should pack up and leave quickly. My father came over and put his arm around my shoulders. Xinxin, don't be angry. It's not worth it to ruin your health for such an angry person. I glanced at the other servants beside me indifferently. They all lowered their heads and dared not look at me. Fortunately, they are all smart people. The problem is solved. I stayed in the living room alone to count the gifts. Things that belong to me, even if I don't want them, others can't touch them. At 1 o'clock, after counting, I returned to the room with the gifts, and just heard the servants talking about Zhou Zhenjin. It turned out that she was raised in a small family, and was not presentable. Yes, she still wanted to compete with the eldest lady. I don't think she can even compare to a hair of hers. I recognized them. Zhou Zhenjin usually called them sister on the left and aunt on the right, and seemed to have a good relationship with them. Zhou Zhenjin suddenly rushed out from a corner, grabbed the hair of the two with one hand and said, You two bitches, am I not good to you usually? How dare you frame me like this? The three of them quickly got entangled. I leaned not far away and watched with interest. By the way, I took out my mobile phone to record a good show. The farce was over. Zhou Zhenjin single-handedly grabbed the other two and broke their heads. He saw me holding the mobile phone at him and panicked instantly. You deliberately arranged for them to frame me. I raised an index finger and shook it. No, it's your own cleverness that backfired. Can servants be expected to work hard for you, just by treating them gently on a daily basis? Of course not. Anyone who can stay here is a sycophant, smart and smooth-talking. If you are always gentle and flattering, not only will you lose the dignity of the host family, but you will also be ridiculed and mocked by others. Kind sister, don't forget your identity. The most important thing for you now is to work hard to improve yourself. What's the point of trying to please servants? Isn't it the right thing to hold on to the existing resources and make up for the skills you should have learned since childhood? You don't need to mind your own business. For some reason, Zhou Zhenjin's face flashed with deep humiliation. Why can you look down on others just because you are rich? I was extremely surprised. This was the first time I looked at him seriously. You really should go see a brain doctor. Every heir needs to have many abilities and qualities. This is not only related to personal development, but also directly related to the future of the family business. So even if I have been spoiled since childhood, I have learned a lot. Now that Zhou Zhenjin has returned to this family, she can't just stay in the thinking of ordinary people and only focus on petty profits. He will be the person in charge of the company in the future. A decision will even affect the families of employees. The burden on him is heavy, and he is far from it now. A qualified entrepreneur must make a promising and structured strategy. Learning is the only way to stay rational and calm, and it is also the only way to acquire economic cognition and skills. I was very disappointed. I said, I originally thought that although you are not smart, you are ambitious. Ambition is not a bad thing for us. Zhou Zhenjin looked at me coldly, and I said, but apart from that, you are vicious and stupid. Zhou Zhenjin trembled all over and bit her lip tightly. I said leisurely, sister, I don't plan to let you. The company will go bankrupt if it is handed over to you. What do you mean? He panicked and shouted in disbelief, I am the parents. My own daughter. I spread my hands innocently. So what? I have said long ago that this is the new law of the jungle. If you are always submissive and docile, you will be pitied but not respected. In the evening, I announced in public that I would officially join the company. My father smiled. I have mentioned you so many times, and this time he finally agreed. My mother looked lost. She will be lonely if you leave. Isn't your sister still at home with you? I deliberately mentioned the only silent person at the table. Zhou Zhenjin was distracted. My mother wanted to touch her forehead with her hand worriedly. Was she not feeling well? She subconsciously avoided it, with annoyance flashing in her eyes. My mother saw it, and her hand froze in place. Zhou Zhenjin came back to her senses and looked at my mother pitifully. Mom, I didn't mean it. It's okay. If you don't feel well, just have a good rest. Zhou Zhenjin got up and left, but my mother was in a trance. He said, I always feel that Zhenjin is a little strange. He doesn't look at me in a good way. It was as if he was looking at his mother. I asked what that look was. It was flattering but also carried a little contempt. I frowned. It sounded very contradictory. My father didn't have much contact with Zhou Zhenjin. He said carelessly, maybe he just wasn't used to it yet, right? I secretly kept this matter in mind and soon gained a foothold in the company. My father was happy to be free and gradually reduced the number of times he came to the company. Zhou Zhenjin didn't make any more troubles and stayed at home obediently. Sometimes when he met me, he would greet me gently. I felt strange in my heart. According to my understanding of Zhou Zhenjin, he would not be able to settle down because of what I said, but he seemed to have really accepted his fate and would not think about fighting again. Instead, I lived the life of a standard second-generation, shopping, playing, and making friends. I haven't found out his trick yet, but I tapped the table with my fingers. What I like most is challenges. The changes in Zhou Zhenjin, on the contrary, show she is quite smart. I have developed some interest in her. Let me guess how she wants to deal with me. I guess first she will lower my vigilance with a submissive attitude, and then cooperate with the friends in the circle to bring me down. I secretly prepared a strategy to deal with it, but found that Zhou Zhenjin was too obedient. Now she is not even keen on going out. Stay at home honestly. Just when I was about to relax my vigilance, an aunt in the family came to me in a hurry. Why did I see her expression flickering? She hesitated for a long time and couldn't say anything. An ominous premonition came to my heart. Miss, I often see Miss Zhenjin recently, coming out of the gentleman's room in the middle of the night. The aunt closed her eyes and said it all out. I almost thought I heard it wrong. My expression instantly turned cold. I warned him, Aunt Lu, you know what you are talking about now, right? Defamation will lead to jail time. My aunt was very sure. At first I thought I saw it, but I was wrong. Later I paid special attention at night and really saw it many times. I recognized my mother and tried to persuade myself not to think too much, but my aunt frowned and said, Miss Zhenjin often goes there in the early morning and comes out at 2 or 3 in the middle of the night, and she is still wearing very cool clothes. The pen in my hand fell and I called my mother with trembling hands. Where are you? I went to travel to the Maldives. When I heard my mother's cheerful voice, my heart sank in an instant. When did you go? How come I didn't know? Recently the company has a big case and I often work overtime until midnight. I simply live in the apartment next to the company and didn't go home. I saw that you were busy so I didn't disturb you. My mother said. Zhenjin asked a friend who is engaged in travel to arrange it for me. I had a lot of fun, don't worry. My mother's eyebrows were filled with coldness. I picked up my coat and ran out. The assistant ran to me and asked Mr. Chen worriedly, Is there anything I can do? I looked at my newly hired assistant. She was a very steady and calm girl with strong ability. I trusted him very much, so I said I had an urgent matter and needed to go home. If you think you can handle the rest of the work, just do it. He was stunned and said yes decisively. I withdrew my gaze with satisfaction and drove home at the fastest speed in my life. When I got home, I happened to meet my dad and Zhou Zhenjin getting ready to go out. My dad was stunned when he saw me. Shouldn't you be in the company at this time? You haven't taken any important documents. No, my suspicious eyes wandered around him and Zhou Zhenjin, with some temptation. What are you going out for? My dad patted the backpack behind him. Your sister and I are planning to go camping. The two of us went out camping, a single man and a single woman living in the quiet mountains. My heart sank more and more. I inevitably felt a little nauseous. Xin, are you feeling unwell? My dad looked at me worriedly. I observed his expression, did not find anything wrong from it. There is no definite evidence, based on which we cannot jump to conclusions. I tried to calm down, and found a random reason. I had a cold recently. Today I left work early to rest. I was sick. My dad frowned. Have you been tired recently and your immunity has decreased? Maybe I took the opportunity to ask Dad, can you stay at home with me? I want to eat the yulong meatball soup you made. My father, who always obeys me, hesitated. Rarely, otherwise Zhenjin and I should come back to make it for you. It seems that my dad cares about Zhou Zhenjin. I pretended to be domineering. If not, you can stay at home. Glanced at Zhou Zhenjin who was smiling gently. I pretended to be dissatisfied and planned to come back to live every day. If I don't come back, you will almost forget me. How can you forget Xin? Okay, I will stay at home. My dad compromised. His expression was a little reluctant. I stared at Zhou Zhenjin coldly, clenched my back teeth. What exactly did he want to do? However, perhaps my return made Zhou Zhenjin alert. Auntie never saw him go to my dad's room in the middle of the night again. I had to suppress my urgency and wait for him to show his hand. In order to hide from others, I installed a pin-shaped camera in the corridor on the second floor. A week later, there was still no progress. On the contrary, my dad would let Zhou Zhenjin go to his study every day, and I didn't know what they were doing. I carefully observed my dad's attitude towards Zhou Zhenjin, and there was no crossing of the line. Zhou Zhenjin behaved very properly. Usually, she would just hold my dad's hand intimately and lean on my dad's shoulder. This father and daughter were too normal. The guess in my heart was gradually overturned. I tried to convince myself that maybe there was a pure father-daughter relationship between them. Another voice sneered. Whose daughter would go to her father's room in the middle of the night wearing cool clothes? I was in a dilemma. The company's affairs are very important, and sometimes I am needed to sign them in the middle of the night. The villa at home is too far from the company, and it is not convenient for my subordinates to find me. In addition, I have recently left early for family matters, and the company's affairs have accumulated a lot. So I decided to stay for 2 more days and then go back to the apartment. During dinner, my assistant sent me a message, hoping that I would sign a document. I asked the driver to pick him up. When I was signing, I suddenly heard a noise upstairs. Zhou Zhenjin was standing on the balcony on the second floor, with a panicked and frightened look, and a very out-of-control expression, as if he had seen an unbearable picture. I followed his gaze calmly and found that he was looking at the assistant next to me. I almost immediately made a decision in my heart and smiled at him. Sister Zhenjin, what's wrong with you? Zhou Zhenjin subconsciously lowered her head and squatted on the ground on the second floor, pretending to pick up something. I broke the quilt. Don't worry about me, I'll clean it up. I'll see. Looking at him, it was obvious that he wanted to hide himself. My doubts deepened. I knew the assistant's background. She was born in poverty and her parents died. She was one of the girls sponsored by my foundation. I was impressed by her because she was one of the few sponsored by the foundation who was admitted to university with excellent grades. She was a good seedling who worked seriously and diligently, and she was also smart and alert. It happened that I had just joined the company and needed to cultivate my own power, so I asked her to come and be my assistant. I was just curious. How could Zhou Zhenjin, who was so arrogant and vain, be afraid of my assistant? It even seemed that she deliberately didn't let the assistant see him. Could there be some hidden story? After signing, I patted the assistant for his hard work and asked him to go back first. Seeing him get in the car, I immediately sent someone to check the information between the two, and really found something strange. Zhou Zhenjin's mother was the assistant's junior high school teacher, but strangely he was not old enough. If today she has retired, her eyes lingered on me unconsciously, and suddenly stopped at a photo of Zhou Zhenjin when she was in junior high school. The current Zhou Zhenjin, except for the similarities between her eyebrows and eyes, looks very similar in other places at first glance, but they are not the same at all when you look closely. A string in my head was suddenly plucked heavily, and I was suddenly surprised by her appearance. They seemed to look very similar, but the assistant often wore black-framed glasses and had a serious expression, while Zhou Zhenjin loved to laugh, so I had not noticed it until today, when I stared at the two photos and a very ridiculous guess arose in my mind. The next morning I went out, hugged my father before leaving, and took a strand of his hair when he was not paying attention, and then winked at the aunt standing next to me. He had just come out of Zhou Zhenjin's room after cleaning, which gave my brother the opportunity to give me the car keys, and then went out. I called the dean's second brother directly and asked him to make an appointment for me for the DNA paternity test in their hospital. I would be there soon. Even if the test was expedited, it would take 2 or 3 days for the result to come out. In my mind, I kept thinking about what had happened in the past few days, and suddenly I was shocked. If Zhou Zhenjin and my father had no blood relationship, then he went to my father's room in the middle of the night wearing cool clothes, which was just a woman going to a man's room. If this was really the case, there would be no excuse except deliberate seduction. If he knew that he could not fight with me because I gradually entered the company and took power, so he wanted to hook up with my father before we could react, it was not impossible. Changing the track to compete with my mother, and using the child to fight for the family estate would be much more advantageous than using a fake identity to fight for the family estate. Everything was connected together and the answer was clear. Zhou Zhenjin understood me just as I understood him. This, if my guess is correct, he knows me and will be suspicious and will take action tonight. I immediately asked the driver to speed up and drive home. I hurriedly got out of the car and ran into the house. There was no sign of my dad in the study, tea room, and bedroom. I called out to the aunt who passed by. Where are my dad and Zhou Zhenjin? The gentleman and the lady are out. I was panicked. When did this happen? Half an hour ago. I immediately ran downstairs and called my third brother while running. He was a policeman in the Public Security Bureau, and immediately helped me track the location of my dad's car. In order to save time, I chose a car with the fastest speed in the garage. Under the command of my third brother, we took a shortcut to intercept them. It was still a step too late. When I arrived at the hotel, their car had already parked downstairs. I quickly found the room number and was about to break into the door with a wrench. The door was suddenly opened. My dad ran out angrily with a gloomy face. I have told you so many times, Oedipus is a disease. You have to go to the hospital. He was stunned when he saw me. Xinxin, why are you here? Zhou Zhenjin ran out crying and hugged her father. I love you. I stared at my dad. His face turned pale and blue. He was obviously embarrassed. My people followed and tore Zhou Zhenjin off my dad. My dad was relieved at that time and then shouted to the bodyguards, take her to the hospital. He will check if there is something wrong with her brain or heart. Zhou Zhenjin struggled desperately to no avail. She cried and shouted in the corridor. My eyebrows skipped a beat. If I don't stop it, what if someone misunderstands it as kidnapping? Population, it's not good to call the police. I asked the bodyguard to cover his mouth and forcibly dragged him away. Sitting in the car, my father carefully persuaded me. Xing, when did you find out? Aunt Lu found Zhou Zhenjin went to your room in the middle of the night. My father's face darkened instantly. How could there be more? He also knew. I interrupted him. Don't worry about it first. What's going on between Zhou Zhenjin and you? It has nothing to do with him, my father said. Anxiously, no, he and I are father and daughter. I stared at him with obvious doubt on my face. My father sighed and explained the cause and effect to me clearly. It turned out on the night my mom passed away, Zhou Zhenjin sneaked into my dad's room in the middle of the night wearing only a suspender. My dad was shocked, but out of his deep love for his daughter, he didn't think much about it. Could it be that she was reading with him in the middle of the night? My dad complained about your sister. Her IQ is really not as simple as yours. She kept running to my side and asking questions about a book. I rolled my eyes and pointed out directly that she was trying to get your attention and let you do something else. My dad looked like he had eaten a fly with a chill on his face. Later, I found that she was becoming more and more abnormal. She often stuck to me and said she loved me and wanted to be with me. Together, I said he thought you were unromantic and changed from hinting to explicit. My dad sighed faintly. Isn't this incest? Then he said I suspected your sister had some mental problems after being abducted. I thought I shouldn't stimulate her, but to persuade her to change her mind. I immediately understood, so I often asked her to go to the study at home just to tell her these things. My dad said yes. He didn't listen. I thought the environment at home was not good, so I wanted to take him camping to see the green mountains and rivers. Maybe he would be fine. I choked. My dad is middle-aged and his favorite just go out for a trip. As he said, mountains and rivers can broaden your mind. Are you serious? My dad covered his face. Yes, I thought he listened to me, but today he tricked me into going camping and took me directly to the hotel. As soon as I entered the door, he started to take off my clothes, which scared me to death. My guess was immediately confirmed. Even if I didn't get the paternity test report at this moment, I could conclude that Zhou Zhenjin was not my parents' biological daughter. I told my dad about this guess and my dad was very angry. He squeezed out words from his teeth. Then what was the point of him leaning on me and holding my arm these days? I looked at him with pity. It's your bad luck. My father stood up. I'm going to sue him for molestation, I reminded him. Then my mother would know. Zhou Zhenjin approached you as your daughter. My father gave up. This matter can't be told to your mother. I certainly won't tell. Such a disgusting thing certainly can't let my mother worry. 2 days later, the result of the paternity test came out. Zhou Zhenjin is not my parents' biological daughter. And my assistant Yuxi, the test shows that. She is my father's biological daughter. I found Yuxi. She was calmly sorting out the documents in her left hand. Not surprised. I was curious why you were so calm. Yuxi smiled. Maybe I feel that I am very satisfied with my current life, so I don't have much feeling about the upcoming new life. I hesitated for a moment. Then I will give you a promotion and a raise. Yuxi became the general manager of the company, which immediately alarmed the whole company. The next day the company issued a statement announcing his identity. People who didn't know thought that he deliberately started from the grassroots position. In order to understand the situation of the company, Yuxi found me full of confusion. You clarified my identity. Then I closed the file, stretched out my hand to him. Hello, cousin. Yuxi was stunned. A week later, my aunt and unclean-law came back from abroad, and my 3 brothers also came back home after finishing their work. The 2 families sat in the living room. The atmosphere was lively and cheerful. My aunt suddenly said that since Cece was back, Xinxin's household registration should be moved back to our house. The house was quiet instantly. My mother came back decisively. No, so many years have passed, so it won't change. My aunt and unclean-law looked at each other, and tears fell instantly. They cried so hard. My mother and father looked at each other, and didn't know what to say for a while. The 3 brothers. Seeing this, my brother also joined the battlefield. Yuxi smiled and watched all this with a gentle expression. I raised my eyebrows and asked, "Why are you so happy?" He looked at me and said, "I'm happy for you. From the moment I started working, I was very nervous, afraid that I would cause you trouble." I was a little puzzled. He asked, "Why would you cause me trouble? I don't understand these things about you wealthy families. However, no one is willing to give his property to another person, right?" I looked at him in surprise. "You are such a considerate person. Yuxi is certainly not that kind of person." When the truth about his life experience was not yet revealed. At that time, he followed me to discuss business and deal with those old foxes, but he didn't give in at all. "I was only considerate of you. Yuxi said that if it weren't for your sponsorship, I wouldn't be here today." I smiled and the shadow of the thin girl with the short haircut flashed through my mind again. I just felt the wonder of fate in the world. I sued Zhou Zhenjin for unjust enrichment, and asked him to return every penny he spent after impersonating his identity. The day when Yuxi and I moved our household registration was the day of the trial. Yuxi and I laughed heartily after listening to the presiding judge read out the verdict. After going out, I met Zhou Zhenjin. At that time, she was being insulted by a middle-aged couple with gray hair. She stared at us with resentment and viciousness, her voice hoarse. "Are you satisfied?" I couldn't help laughing and shook my head. "I will be satisfied when you pay back the money. 7 million, many ordinary people can't get this number in their lifetime, and Zhou Zhenjin will be trapped by this number in her lifetime." "You are Yuxi," the middle-aged woman next to Zhou Zhenjin. Looking at Yuxi in a daze, Yuxi's expression was calm. "Teacher Yuan, long time no see." I looked at this junior high school teacher curiously. Reminiscing, I remembered the whole story of Zhou Zhenjin's impersonation of Yuxi. When Yuxi was in junior high school, she was highly regarded by this teacher. So she regarded the teacher as her biological mother. The two had a very close relationship. Later, the teacher saw the missing person notice on TV. It happened that he also knew something about Yuxi, so he gradually guessed Yuxi's identity. However, he did not alarm the snake, but his relationship with Yuxi became closer and closer. His daughter of the same age gradually underwent plastic surgery to look like Yushi, and then took the initiative to come to the house and replaced Yushi's identity step by step. I suddenly remembered that Zhou Zhenjin had just come to my house when I was young. I asked my mother why she was so sure that this was her daughter. My mother said that she saw the red mole on Zhou Zhenjin's shoulder. I guessed that Yushi also had an identical red mole on his shoulder. Let's go. Yushi's voice brought me back to my senses. After walking for a while, I tilted my head to look at her. She was still sad. She smiled with tears in her eyes. I used to really regard her as my mother. I put my arm around her and said nonchalantly, "Don't think about it. Mom is still waiting for you to come back home for dinner." He replied heavily, "Well, Yushi resigned in the second year, and the HR submitted his resignation report to when she came to me." I held my forehead and asked, "Isn't it my turn to leave? Why are you leaving?" He smiled brightly and said, "You are a natural leader. My parents will feel more at ease if the company is in your hands than in mine." "What about you?" he said. "I want to devote myself to charity and help more girls from poor families." She looked at me very seriously, just like you were back then. "I have always wanted to be someone like you." I shrugged and said, "Don't make me sound so great. I only did my little bit of help, but for a little grass like me back then, you've done enough." I was silent, waved and left. "Well, do what you want to do. Yushi is a very good person. He has ideals, quick thinking, strong execution, and a momentum of unstoppable force. He knows better than anyone that he will succeed, and the fact proves that I have a good eye." Yushi became famous. My aunt had her eyes fixed 5 times when she went out that day, and her face was stiff from smiling. Netizens spoke highly of him, and even my company's stock rose a lot. I was so happy that I called him. "You are a person who has achieved success, and all of us will benefit." Yushi's voice was lazy. "The company lacks me in this aspect. Who would mind if I smiled? More, when will you come back? What's wrong? I have a bitter face. When you left, my mother and aunt caught me and pulled me. I had 3 kisses in a month." Yushi laughed out loud without hesitation. He said he would wait for me to come back and rescue you. "Hey, I have been lucky more than once. My cousin is doing well as I hoped when I was young. She is a tough and smart girl, even beyond my expectation. Even if there are some flaws in her life, Xiaoman is better than everything." My mother called me from the windowsill. "Cece just called and said that she would go home tonight. The uncle asked us to go over for a gathering." I smiled and agreed. The whole text is over.